Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I'm so excited to jump in today's video because I'm finally going to be doing a video that has been highly requested. It never mattered what type of car freshie video I did. There was always people in the comments asking, how much does it cost to get started to actually make these car freshies? How much does each car freshie actually cost to make? So I thought, why not do an entire video based around how much a car freshie actually costs to make and touch on all of the supplies that you need to actually get started, how much it's going to cost you to get started. So whether you're thinking about getting into the freshie game and you just want to know how much you're going to be spending to get started, or how much a freshie actually costs to make, or maybe you've been selling freshies for a while and you're just trying to figure out how much they actually cost you to make and what you should be pricing yours at. In either case, if you're ready for this breakdown, keep watching. Okay, so first I want to list all of the supplies that you're going to need if you're making your own car freshies. First, you're going to need some aroma beads. Now, I already have some that are pigmented. That's why they are pink. You're also going to need some mason jars or other like airtight containers to keep your aroma beads in. You're also going to need some mica pigment powder to color your beads. Otherwise, they're going to be kind of clear, translucent, have a white tint to them. You're also going to need some type of string or elastic or cord to hang your freshies with, along with some cookie cutters, or you can even use a silicone mold as long as it is oven safe. You're going to need some roofing nails to make the hole in your car freshie, along with a non-stick baking sheet to actually bake your car freshies on. You're also going to need some type of fragrance oil. And then you're also going to need some type of smell-proof bag to actually put your car freshie in once it's been baked. And some things that you don't necessarily have to have, but you should definitely keep in the back of your mind if you consider using these for your freshies. And that is things like labels to go on your bags. No, you don't necessarily have to make labels to go on your bags. You could just write what scent it is right on the bag with a Sharpie if you wanted to. And you don't necessarily need, decorations like flowers to go on your freshies to decorate them. But the better your freshie looks, the more likely it is to sell, and the cuter and more money and time that goes into making the freshie, obviously that's the more that you can charge for it down the road. So just some things I wanted to quickly mention before we dive into the breakdown of the actual cost of the freshies. All right guys, so I'm gonna be using my iPad to show you guys the breakdown of the cost of freshies. I've already done all of the research, the math, the whole nine, but in case there's any of you out there that are like me, you are a visual learner, I'm going to figure out the cost of these freshies and break it down with you so that you can see how to do it, so that you can apply your numbers to my math and figure out your actual costs so that you can go from there. So just know that these prices do not reflect the exact supplies that I used. I really did a ton of research for this video. I really wanted to try to make it kind of average across the board, find the median prices of everything so that I could get a basic average cost that a general person who's using general products can use as a reference, but also just to show you guys the breakdown so that you guys can figure out the exact cost of your freshies with the supplies that you guys use. So just know that all of the supplies that I am talking about in this video, I will link down in the video description. And these are the average products, average price. I didn't go with the cheapest supply that I could find or the highest supply I could find. I went pages deep into research, comparing prices, and found the median price across the board and went from there. So I just wanted to mention that before we get started. Supplies that are reused. Now, these are supplies that I would consider an upfront cost that you need to get started in order to make freshies. Consider these as an investment. These are just supplies that I needed to get started in making car freshies, and I just considered it an investment. So cookie cutters, typically your average metal cookie cutter is about $2. Now, if you use one of the silicone molds to make your car freshies in, those can run you anywhere from $15 to $25 I've seen. But typically the average price for the silicone mold is $20. And the average price for the metal cookie cutters is $2. For a baking sheet, the average baking sheet I saw for a non-stick one was around $5 to $10. So the median there would be $7.50, $8. For a box of roofing nails, they cost me $2 for an entire box. I have used the same box of roofing nails since I started making Car Freshie. You'll also need some mason jars. Now you can order a 12 pack of mason jars for $20 on Amazon, and that was around the average price, and that comes out to $1.67 per jar. So again, these are supplies that are reused. I do not factor these into my actual cost per Freshie. So moving right along, those are just things that you need to keep in mind that I wanted to mention. So now I'm gonna go over the supplies that you actually need in order to make a Car Freshie. So like I said first, you're going to need some aroma beads. Now, one company that I really like is called Buy It, Ship It. They sell on Amazon. They also have an Etsy shop, and I believe they have their own website also. When I first started, I was buying 3-pound bags. Now I buy 25-pound bags. So just like with any other product, if you have to buy supplies for, wholesaling products, buying bulk quantities is always cheaper than buying like a smaller unit. So in my case, I would buy a 25-pound bag of aroma beads, and it would be significantly less per pound than buying a smaller quantity. But because I understand a lot of you are only buying, 3 to 5 pounds at a time, or maybe you're just getting started, I'm using this example for you guys. So in this case, this 3-pound bag was $19.25. So when I broke that down, 1 pound is equal to $6.42. Now, obviously your Freshie cost is really going to ultimately depend on the size of the Car Freshie. So I like to categorize mine by small, medium, large. So in this example, I am going with a medium-sized Freshie, just to kind of be in the middle there. And with a medium Freshie, I use 4 ounces of beads. So I'm just gonna write a little note over here. Knowing that we're only using these 4 ounces of beads to make these Freshies, I know that there are 16 ounces in 1 pound. So knowing that, and knowing that I'm only using 4 ounces per Freshie, when I break that down, 4 ounces, when you do that math, that came out to $1.60 per medium Freshie. So moving right along to our next supply, which is fragrance oil. Now, obviously, this is going to depend where you're buying your fragrance oil. If you're buying yours on Amazon, you're probably going to be paying a little bit more. Sometimes there are like certain scents that I know that I can only find on Amazon, but there's a ton of other sites that I also order from because I like their exclusive scents. Sometimes they have sales. Sometimes there's Etsy sellers that make their own fragrance oils and they have sales all the time. So I really buy from a ton of different companies. But for this example, I am going to be using Candle Science because that was one of the first companies that I used. I fell in love with it. It's not the highest price out there, but it's obviously not the lowest. But I really like the brand Candle Science. I think the quality is just there. I'm content with the prices, so I continue to buy from there a lot. So I'm going to be using them for this example. So I typically buy 16-ounce jars of my fragrance oil, but you can get them all the way from 1 ounce all the way to like an entire barrel if you need to order that much. But like I said, the more you order, the cheaper it's going to be. So I know if it's a scent that I know is going to sell and do well, I just automatically buy the 16-ounce jar. If it's a scent that I'm like just trying out for the first time, I want to see how it smells. Maybe I want to make like a sample Freshie and then just get like a whole, consensus on it, then I'll buy like a 1 ounce to try out. Or if it's one that, I know will sell, but maybe it doesn't do as well as the others, or maybe it's just a seasonal scent, so I'm not going to be making as many Freshies with it, then I'll buy the 8-ounce bottle of fragrance oil. But typically, in a scent like vanilla, that's a really popular scent, I'm going to order a 16-ounce jar, in which case all of their 16-ounce jars, unless it's like a specialty fragrance or something, they're all $19.74. First, there's 2 things that we need to know. For 1 ounce of oil, that equals 2 tablespoons. You also need to know that for every 4 ounces of beads, you use 1 tablespoon of fragrance oil, okay? So if we have 1 ounce of fragrance oil, that is going to equal $1.23 per ounce. And knowing that there are 2 tablespoons in 1 ounce and we only have to use 1 tablespoon per Freshie, we're gonna break that down again. So 1 tablespoon is going to be 62 cents per Freshie. You'll also need some mica pigment powder. And again, the more you order, the cheaper it is. Now you can get, you know, like the little sample packets, which, you know, I like to do when I'm trying out different colors for the very first time or a new brand for the very first time. I also like to buy the little jars. The mica pigment powder that I had used for this one was a $14.95 container, and it was 50 grams of mica pigment powder. Now, when you break that down, we divided $14.95 by 50 to get it down to the per gram. So for every gram of mica pigment powder, it's going to be 30 cents. And to go a little bit further, a little more precise, we are not using 1 gram of mica pigment powder per Freshie. Now, you also need to know that in 1 teaspoon, that is equivalent to 4.2 grams, okay? Now, I use 1/4 of a teaspoon for every 4 ounces of beads, which is per Freshie, like I said. So that is equal to 1.5 grams, and that equaled 32 cents per Freshie. So then moving right along, you also need string for all of your Freshies, or cord, elastic, whatever. And the one that I buy is $11.98 or 5 yards. So then I divided $11.98 by 5, and that gave me 24 cents per yard. Obviously, we're not stringing up our Freshie with a yard of string. So then I also took note that 1 yard is 36 inches, okay? Which basically comes out, when you round up, to a penny for every inch. I cut 10-inch cord strips for each Freshie. So then that equals 10 cents for every Freshie. Okay, and then last but not least, you have to have some kind of smell-proof bag to put your car Freshie in once it's been baked. And the bags that I buy are these like holographic bags, and I buy a 100-pack of bags for $14. So when you break that down, that comes out to 14 cents per bag. So obviously that's going to be per Freshie. Okay, so then when you add up 160, 62 cents, 32 cents, 10 cents, and 14 cents, you're gonna get a grand total of $2.78 per Freshie. Okay, so this is going to be our general cost per Freshie. So if you happen to decorate that Freshie, so some of my Freshies I sell plain, you know, some people are buying them for gifts for people and they don't want them decorated, or maybe their personal preference is just a plain Freshie. They don't want one that's all decorated. But if you are decorating your Freshie, you do need to account for that. In my case, I sometimes use like cute little flowers. Well, I buy them from the Dollar Tree. So I'm getting like an entire like bushel of flowers for $1, but I will be able to decorate 4 Freshies with those flowers that came on that stem. So then that comes out to 25 cents per Freshie if I'm, you know, doing like a full flower crown or something on the Freshie. Or sometimes I'll tie like a little bow or something, and I get like a lot of my ribbon from like Hobby Lobby or Michael's, but I only buy them when they're on sale. And I'll get them, you know, it'll be like a decent amount of ribbon, and that's like $2. well, I'll be able to do like 15 Freshies with that ribbon. So then that only comes out to 13 cents for every Freshie that gets a bow. Or sometimes I use like the puffy paint, and again, I buy mine at like Hobby Lobby or Michael's, but I only buy it when they're having a sale on it or something. And then I stock up. And I'll get, you know, a little bottle of puffy paint for $1, but I'm able to, you know, decorate 10 Freshies with that. Like, let's say I'm covering the entire Freshie with leopard spots. I can do 10 Freshies with a small bottle of black puffy paint. So then that only comes out to, you know, 10 cents per Freshie. Now, I typically don't ever decorate like with multiple different decorations unless it's like a custom order and someone like specifically asked for that. Typically, they're either plain or they come with like one decoration. So it'll be like a cow with a flower crown, or there'll be a cow with a bow or a bandana, or it'll be a cow with a bunch of leopard spots all over it. So in that case, then you would add, you know, the 25 cents or 13 cents or 10 cents to your cost of Freshie. Now, something that like you don't necessarily need, but you also need to just keep in the back of your mind. For example, you don't have to have labels to go on your Freshie bags. So as you can see here on my Freshie bag, I have a label. So it has my website, my logo, and then the actual scent name on there. I get these on a sheet of Avery labels. And for anyone asking, this is the Avery labels. 18260 is the product code. But I get 30 labels per page. So when I buy a whole pack of labels, I pay $8.84 for 750 labels. Now, when you do that math, that comes out to a penny per label. So that's obviously per Freshie. Do you really care about that extra penny to label your bag? I think it makes my Freshie bags just look a little more professional finished. They just look better than just, you know, the scent written on with a Sharpie. But if you want to save that penny, then write on your bag with a Sharpie. It's whatever you prefer. Another thing that you don't necessarily have to have, but definitely comes in handy, and I can't imagine doing Freshies without it, is the non-stick cooking spray. So like Pam, and you know, that's about, you know, $2 a can. I don't even count that into my Freshie cost at all because I always have cooking spray on hand. You know, I use it for cooking and baking and whatever. So I don't really count that, but I never make Freshies without using cooking spray on my cookie cutters. Now, something else that you need to account for. So I personally charge shipping on all of my orders, not just for car Freshies, but everything that I sell on my website. I do charge my customers for shipping. There are a ton of people out there that are against that and they want to give their customers free shipping. If you are one of those people that wants to give your customers free shipping, that is completely fine. That's up to you. It's whatever you prefer. Like I said, how you want to run your business. But if you are offering free shipping, you also need to consider your mailers or boxes that you ship your car Freshies. If you're even shipping car Freshies, some of you might be only selling them, you know, like locally at craft fairs. Maybe you have a boutique or something that you sell these in, whatever. Any of the shipping or mailing cost, if you are charging for shipping, then it doesn't matter. Incorporate that, all of these shipping items, into your shipping cost. If you are offering free shipping, you need to make sure that you are including all of these costs in your Freshie cost so that you're not just shorted money unless you're accounting to take this money from somewhere else from your business. Another thing that you don't necessarily need, but I've seen a lot of people use, is care instructions. Whether you are getting these like professionally made and printed and sent to you, or you're making your own, or you're putting stickers on your packaging, in whatever case, you need to account for these in your Freshie cost. So I didn't include, you know, care instructions in mine. The shipping stuff I didn't include in mine because I charge for shipping. I don't include the cooking spray. I do incorporate the labels because I do use labels in my Freshies. So overall, my general cost per Freshie is $2.79. So once you have figured out like your actual cost per Freshie, and then you can kind of like, you know, break down like if you have decorations or whatever you want to add, you can obviously incorporate that. My average cost is $2.79 per Freshie, and this is obviously for a undecorated one. So then whenever you're trying to figure out what you should be pricing your Freshies at, or maybe you're checking to see if you're charging the right amount for your Freshie, then I recommend that you check your competitor's price, because you obviously don't want to be, you know, the very cheapest out there, but you obviously don't want to be the most expensive either. So I try to stay in the middle. So what I did kind of research to see if I was in a good bracket for my car Freshies was I looked at one example in particular, and that is this cow head. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. So I use this cow head car Freshie. I would consider this a large car Freshie in my opinion. So I just went on Etsy and I typed in cow head car Freshies, and it came up with a ton of cute car Freshies by a ton of different sellers on Etsy. Now obviously some people are doing solid colors, some of them are painted, some of them have like cute leather fringe on the bottom, or it's like multicolored, or they're just decorated elaborately or whatever. So obviously the price range is going to differ, you know, to that Etsy seller and how much time and money they put into their car Freshies. So looking at that large cow head car Freshie, they ranged on Etsy anywhere from $7 to $11 were like the most popular prices I saw. So that's a pretty wide range. I sell my cow head car Freshies about $8 to $9 depending on the colors, how they're decorated, how much time went into them, the whole nine. Typically they're $8, but sometimes if they have like multiple decorations or just a lot of time went into them, then I'll charge the $9. So in my case, because I price most of my car Freshies at $8, and the car Freshies typically cost me about $2.79 to make, that is going to come out to $5.21 profit for every car Freshie. Now obviously if they're, you know, more decorated or whatever, your cost is going to go up per car Freshie. Like I said before, you know, it might go up 10 cents because, you know, I had leopard print all over that cow head, in which case I would charge $9 for that car Freshie, and my price would be $2.89, in which case my profit comes out to $6.11. But also something that we need to keep in mind is that large cow head car Freshie, I considered a large Freshie, and this was for a medium Freshie. So just keep that in mind. You're obviously going to go up, you know, a couple pennies for the size difference in your car Freshies, but relatively I just like to find a medium to kind of base everything off of. So in which case, you know, $5 to $6 is not a bad profit for something that only cost me a couple bucks to make. All right, you guys, hopefully this video was helpful to you, or at least a good starting point so that you can figure out how much your Freshies actually cost to make and what you should be pricing your Freshies at if you are reselling them. As always, like I said before, I will link everything in the video description down below for you guys. And if you have any other questions or comments, feel free to drop a comment down below. If you like this video, please let me know that you liked it by giving me a big thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please consider clicking that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any other crafting tutorials or any other small business related videos. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one.